Okay, hello everyone. We'll just wait for a few people to arrive. I believe we are live now on the internet, live and direct from my living room in Leeds. So it's going to be a great pleasure to talk to you today and to show you my passion, somatics. It's saying we're live now. We've got people coming in, so I'm going to wait for a few people to arrive. And then we'll get started. So feel free to comment and tell me that you can hear what I'm saying. That would be really helpful. It's slightly, yay, there we are. It's slightly unnerving doing this. I teach on Zoom quite a lot, but I can normally sort of see and get reactions from people. So this is a fairly new experience for me. Oh, hello, there we are. There, people are coming in. Excellent. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Ian Young and I'm a somatics teacher, and I'll be explaining all about what somatics is in a little while. I myself have had AS since I was 13 years old and had many challenges with it. Had to use a walking stick from my early 20s for about 20 years until I discovered Pilates and somatics and was able to use those to give up using a walking stick, which I feel is a really big achievement. I've been teaching people with AS for about 3 years now, and since lockdown began I've also been teaching a national class for people with AS on Zoom, and getting more people interested and really getting dedicated to understanding how somatics can help them. Talking of which, I'm going to introduce you to Andrea here. So Andrea is one of my longest standing clients who came to my live classes when we actually did them in person in Leeds. So she's been coming to somatics classes for 3 years. She herself has AS, and I thought before we start moving we'd just have a little chat and get her perspective. You'll hear my perspective as we go through. But yeah, just if you'd just like to say a little bit about what somatics has done for you. You've been coming for 3 years. How do you feel it's helped you?
It's changed things remarkably for me, really. I've had AS since I was 17, and I felt as though AS would mean I would deteriorate through my life, but actually over the last 3 years things have improved. I understand my body more, I notice things, and I don't get so concerned when I have a flare-up, because I know that there's somatic movements that I can do that can help the tension in the muscles and it can ease the pain. So it's just made such a difference to me, and I do feel as though the regular somatics and the classes with Ian, and then also doing somatics on my own at home, which is so easy to do, means that I can just align myself, you know. Start of the day in the morning, I feel so much better once I've done some somatics movements and I've aligned myself for the rest of the day. And if I notice something's not feeling quite right, there are small movements that can be done just to improve things. So it's just really reassuring to know that you can do things that make a difference and make life that little bit better with AS.
Brilliant. I'm going to put it better myself. Thank you very much. So Andrea's also here because she's going to be I wouldn't say demonstrating, but so the soma in somatics is the body as experienced from the inside. So it's a Greek word, and the reason we talk about it is because in most classes that you go to, physio, yoga, Pilates, there's someone at the front pointing their body in particular ways, and you're trying to copy them from the third person perspective, from the outside. Somatics is a little bit different. We go inside into our bodies and we notice how do we want to move, how do we feel we can move. And so generally I don't demonstrate. I talk, people listen. A lot of the time you can do somatics with your eyes closed. It's quite a meditative process, and you go in and you notice what isn't moving, and move how your body is able to. And you just take the movement that your body wants to give you. You're not trying to get anywhere, you're not trying to take movement that your body doesn't want to give you. So when we're doing these movements today, always work within comfort. If you do start to feel pain, the approach we like to take is to sort of very gently go towards that pain, just touch towards that pain and sort of feather touch, and then move away from it again. And so you're just gradually each time getting a little bit closer and seeing if that just helps the body to release. It tends to be a more effective way of getting the body to release and move. And I think when we have AS, we tend to think all of our problems are AS, but what I've found is that a lot of it is this fact that the body then tenses up around the painful joints, and it's actually working with somatics can release all that tension around the joints so that you can actually move and feel better. So the body obviously thinks it's doing the right thing by tensing up to protect the joint, but actually it just causes you more problems, really. Okay, so one of the other things that we do is we spend quite a lot of time noticing our body and going into our body. And I know that can be a little bit challenging for those of us with AS. We probably had advice to just kind of take the painkillers and grunt through the exercises. Again, it's a slightly different approach, and it may seem scary at first to actually think about going towards your body, towards areas where they're painful. But really what you're doing is you're understanding your body better, as Andrea was saying a minute ago. And you're able to then kind of just really listen to and tune into your body and go, oh yeah, that's how I want to move today. I just want to move to this extent. So just checking, is there anything? Yeah, so part of that awareness and part of that noticing, we actually, when we're doing the movements, we tend to pause afterwards and just notice what's changed. So through the little series of exercises or movements we're doing today, we'll keep pausing and just kind of coming back to where we're at. And so we're going to start with in standing. So if you're comfortable to stand, you can do this in sitting as well. Most somatic movements you can do in standing or lying or sitting. So you can always adapt them. So just work with what's most comfortable for you. So if we just come to stand to start with, so you want to really essentially create a baseline, notice how you're feeling now, do the movements, and then you can notice again at the end how you're feeling after that. And in a minute, Andrea's going to be doing the demonstrating, and then I'll be watching the chat, so I'll be able to answer any questions as we're going through as well. Pop them in the chat. Okay, so let's stand. And first of all, just notice what part of your body is calling out to you. Are there particular areas that are feeling like the weight is not falling through the skeleton? So ideally you want the skeleton to be doing most of the work to make you stand up. But you might notice, for instance, your shoulders are slightly raised. You might notice they're slightly curled forwards. You might notice a bit of pain and stiffness between the shoulder blades. Is the lower back muscle relaxed, or is that engaged? Are the glutes in the buttocks engaged, or are you able to just let them be loose? And then just notice where the weight is in your feet. So is it more at the front of the foot, more at the back of the foot? And you can just rock yourself very gently backwards and forwards to notice. And then you can shift the weight side to side and notice whether you have a habit of sitting into one hip. It's very common for us to sort of sit across into one hip. So just notice if you're doing that at all, if there's more weight in one foot than the other. And then there's one other thing just to tell you about before we start to move, and that's one of the key parts of somatics is what's called the reflexes in the body. So we think again AS is all of our problems, but actually what's happening is a lot of the time these reflexes are being triggered, and the most common one is the red light or the startle reflex, which all mammals exhibit, which is when you hear a loud noise you close in, so you bring the shoulders forward, jut the chin forward, and it's quite a closed in. There's not much room to breathe. And so we want to learn how to not get into that being triggered constantly by stress and sitting and computers, all these things that kind of shorten. And obviously quite often in AS we have this kind of forward head position and the rounded spine, so it's quite important for us to learn how to get out of that posture. And then a common one also is the green light reflex, the opposite, so action. So when someone tells you to stand up straight, it's this really pulling the shoulders back, ramrod straight, and if you do that, you'll notice that the lower back muscles get really tight. So again, that's not something we want to do, and so we work to move out of these positions. And then the third reflex is called the trauma or avoidance, where there's a bit of a twist, and the most obvious way to notice this is if you kind of put the weight across to one side of your foot, and you just kind of feel a bit awkward and out of alignment. So we're always working to try and improve the alignment. So let's go on to our first movement. So it's very simple and straightforward. We're just going to lift the right shoulder up towards the ear and tilt the ear onto that shoulder, and you can sort of curl the shoulder forward slightly to get that squeeze in the side of the neck. So you're contracting that muscle in the side of the neck, and then you're very slowly lowering the arm down as you lift the head. And this is what we call a pandiculation. So rather than stretching a tight muscle, what we're doing is we're contracting into it first. So let's do it again. So lifting the shoulder up, squeezing the head onto the shoulder, and then really slowly lowering it down. And when it gets to the bottom, completely letting it go. So it's also important we're really connecting the brain. So we're bringing this thing, a lot of the time we move and we can't think about how we move all the time, so it's governed by the subcortex. So when we do a movement like this slowly and carefully, we're resetting in the brain how we move, and that's the power of somatics as well. So let's do just one more on that side. So squeeze the shoulder up, and then slowly lowering it down, letting everything go completely. And then as you stand there, just noticing the two different sides and noticing any difference. So I can feel like that shoulder has dropped on that side, so we've released this muscle, this levator scapula, the muscle that lifts the shoulder blade up and down. The arm feels longer. It's also slightly further back on the side, so one hand I haven't done is sitting in front of my leg, and the side that I've just done, are you feeling that as well? It's gone further back to around the side of the leg. And then the other rather amazing thing is if you just bring your hands out straight in front of you, you find that your arm has got longer. Yours has got incredibly longer. So let's even ourselves up. Let's do the other side. So lifting the left shoulder, tilting the head back on to the shoulder, getting that squeeze in the side of the neck, contracting into the tight muscle, and then really slowly lowering bit by bit, bit by bit, bit by bit, till it's completely at the bottom where you totally switch off. And then let's do another one. Squeeze, feel the contraction, squeeze the side of the neck, and then really slowly lower and release. And let's do one more on this side. Squeeze up, and then slowly and then feel both sides and notice. So I feel wider across the front now. And it feels like both arms are dangling off for a bit less effort, and then come back a little bit further. And also you might feel that the weight has shifted back slightly in the hip towards your heels. If you're feeling that. So it's just that as your arms and as your shoulders open and your arms come back, just really stacks you with your whole system in a nice alignment. So that's like a really simple demonstration of pandiculation, and we do that throughout the body with somatic movements. So that's just an example of the neck and shoulders, but we work with all different parts of the body. In a typical somatics class, we would get the spine to move in all 6 directions. Okay, so should we go to the mats? Let's go to the mat. So I'm just going to do a quick rearrangement with the laptop. So you put that down on the floor and get yourself so you can see.
I might better be this way, not do you think?
Whichever looks best on the camera.
Yeah.
You can squish it back as well. Okay, so a lot of somatic movement that we do is done lying on a mat, so it's fairly accessible. If that's quite a difficult thing for you to do, to get up and down off a mat, you can also, as I say, do some of it in standing or sitting in a chair. Quite manageable. So again, as we arrive on the mat, we do another scan. So we're in a different relationship to gravity now. So we just want to notice all the contact points. Maybe just look where your eyes are looking. Notice whether your chin's pointing up towards the ceiling or down towards your chest. See if you can feel your shoulder blades lying either flat on the mat, or maybe they're digging in a bit, winging a bit. And then you might want to feel into the lower back, and just perhaps you pop your hands under there and just see how much of an arch is there. So we are meant to have a natural S-curve in our spine, but you might just notice that that's quite pronounced for you, and just notice the sort of level of tension in those lower back muscles as we start. And then just notice the weight down the 2 sides of your body, the 2 sides of the pelvis, the calves and the heels. So just to get that snapshot as we start to move on the mat, how you're feeling. So you sort of memorise that, remember, get that sensation of how you're feeling as we start. And then we're going to slide the heels towards you and plant the feet a comfortable distance from your bottom. So just wherever the pelvis isn't tilted either backwards or forwards, it's just nice and level and neutral. And then we're going to start with breathing. So really important to breathe nice and deeply. So putting a hand below the belly button. And we're going to start to take in big breaths in through the nose, swelling the belly under our hand, and then sighing out through a nice relaxed open throat. And what this does is it helps to calm the system down, get you ready to move. It's called the parasympathetic system, so rather than the flight and fright response, you don't want the body to be feeling that when you're trying to move. So this deep, slow breathing helps you just to really tune in. And then you're going to start to use this breath to encourage the pelvis to move. So you can take the hand away now, Andrea, and just really allow that pelvis to sink in the middle as you breathe out. And then as you breathe in, you're arching that back away from the mat. It's a very simple movement, but we start with the centre of the body because it's where most of the muscles in the body connect to. So if you can release in the centre, then you'll start to move better in the rest of your body. And you'll notice that Andrea is letting the movement go all the way up the spine so that the head is also moving. So as you arch the back, the chin comes down. As you sink in the middle and you breathe out, you sigh out, nice relaxed open throat, the chin lifts. So it's simple physics really. When you sink in the middle, the tailbone lifts and the chin lifts. So it's not just the pelvis that's moving, it's a whole body movement, whole of the spine. The head and the pelvis are opposite ends of the spine, so when one moves, the other one also moves. So if you're finding you're not quite sure what to do with your head, see if you can just allow it to move, and if it's not moving, then just encouraging as you arch the chin to come down, as you sink your back towards the mat, lifting the chin. Imagine, if you like, you've got a bowl of water on your belly and you're just trying to spill a little bit more out each time you breathe in. And then sinking in the middle. And if anything's not clear, pop it in the chat. I'm just having a look at that now. Achy neck and scapular day, says Christina. So yeah, that last movement that we were doing is really good for getting the scapula moving. That muscle that we're working was the one that lifts the scapula up and down. And then we can just develop this a little bit further. So as Andrea breathes out, she's going to roll the arms towards her and lift the shoulders, and then as she breathes in, she's going to roll the arms away from her and press the shoulders into the mat. So that just gives you that little bit more. You can see how that helps the chest just to sink that little bit more, and then to lift. And then you can start to bring in the knees as well, so squeeze the knees together as you roll the arms towards the sides. And what we're doing here is we're basically triggering those two reflexes that we demonstrated at the beginning, and then we're rolling out of them. So it's showing you a way, if you feel like you have either of those reflexes happening in your body, this movement is a great way to allow you to release. And that's probably enough, so you can let that one go and just let the legs go long. Have a little pause. So we don't tend to think about doing large numbers of repetitions of somatic movements. It's really more about the quality of the movement that you're focusing on, and it's done slowly and carefully, so with real attention to what's going on. So you're really engaging the brain, so you're bringing how you move into the voluntary cortex, making your brain reprogramming how you move, and then it goes back into the subcortex and you'll move better. So yeah, some people have when they've come to my classes or they've come to my one-to-ones, they sort of said, wow, it feels like magic. And it does feel like magic, but actually there's good neurological science behind it all as to why it works. So then, as you lie there, you can just have noticed what's going on. In a class I would get people to say how they were feeling, so if you're noticing anything in there, feel free to chip in.
I've noticed that my head's gone back.
So she's feeling her head is going back.
And my shoulders as well. My shoulders feel flatter on the mat.
And the shoulders are now flatter on the mat. So fairly simple movement, and already starting to feel differences in the body. Okay, so if you'd like to roll over onto your front, if that is comfortable for you, if you can put your forehead onto your hands, or just find whatever way you can find to make yourself comfortable. And then you're going to just start by pressing the front of one side of your pelvis down into the mat. So you can contracting the front there and then slowly releasing it up. So again, we're finding ways to contract and slowly release muscles, and then the other side. So just taking it in turns. So effectively you're rocking side to side on your pelvis, but you're doing it in a particular way. You're squeezing down the front of the hip into the mat and then slowly releasing it. And then you can start to lengthen the same leg away as you're squeezing down. So we're basically trying to mobilise the pelvis in as many different ways as we can. And I know that you may be finding that you're not getting a great deal of movement, may feel very stiff for you, and certainly when I first started doing Pilates and Somatics, I found that my pelvis didn't move at all, and I thought it was all completely fused. And gradually over many years of working with it, it's remarkable. I still feel like I'm improving even 10 years on from starting this process. And so as you're lengthening, you're noticing that one side of your body has to lengthen to allow the leg to go away, and you probably feel how the pelvic wheel turns and the other side shortens. And you're just doing it softly within your own comfort levels. And then we're going to come up onto your elbows with the top half. And then you're going to start to look over one shoulder, round, down as far as you can towards that foot, and then you're going to continue to lift the opposite leg. So not the leg you're looking at. And then slowly lower it down as you then turn and look over the other shoulder. So now we're just contracting from the shoulder to the opposite hip. So the body often moves in spirals, and so we're using the spirals contract across those diagonal swings on the back of the body and slowly releasing. And you can let that one go. You might want to come back onto your heels to round out your back into child's pose. When you've done a lot of extension like that, where you want to lift the back up, you might find that a bit of a challenge. So just rounding the back out for a moment can just help to round and ease off any aches in the back. And then just roll over onto your back again. And just have another pause. So So as I say, some people find lying on their front quite a challenge, and in a live class I would always tend to be able to adapt movements for people, so if you did find that, you could always actually do that movement in standing. That would be the alternative way to do that one. So again, after doing a little sequence like that, we'd lie on the back and we'd notice what has changed. So particularly targeting the muscles in the back. And I can see from looking at Andrea here that the back of the neck is actually lengthened and the chin has come down. So looking sort of flatter. It's a strange thing to look for, but if you're flatter, it basically means that you're more aligned in your posture. Okay, so let's bring the knees up again. So we've done the diagonal slings across the back of the body, and now if you put your left hand behind your head, and then we're going to breathe in and arch the back again, so that movement we were doing at the beginning. And then as you breathe out, you're going to bring your left shoulder, left elbow and right knee towards each other. Put your hand on it as well. Again, just going within comfort and then slowly opening. And then you can drop the heel and slide that right leg away. Just feel the release deep in the thigh, just have a little pause. And then you do it again. So as you bring the leg back up, you breathe in, arch the back. And then as you breathe out, you're going to twist across your body. So now you're contracting from that front of that shoulder towards the opposite hip on the front of your body. Again, we're working, the reason we work in the way that we have, in the order we have, we release from the centre first, and we also work to move the spine in all the directions. So we've released the front, and moved the spine backwards and forwards, and now you'll notice that there's some rotation happening as you turn across the body. So the ribs are turning. And there's quite a lot we can do in somatics with ribs, and I know that we often have issues with AS with our ribs, and there's a lot that we can do for people with stiff ribs. Somatics really helps with that. So bringing the knees back up, and then let's switch the hands round behind the head. We're going to start with that breathing in, and then we're going to turn across the body. So if someone's asking, someone's saying they're unable to lay on the floor, can you show us any sitting or standing movements, please? Yeah, we'll go at that in a second. So, Andrea, do you want to just try standing up and doing a very similar sort of movement? So just tilt this side back a little bit so you can see. So if you stand up and you're just lifting the knee up a little bit and turning your yeah, that's it. So lift the knee up, turn. So all we're trying to do is get that contraction from the opposite shoulder. And then as you breathe in, you arch the back, you press your head into your hand, and then as you breathe out again, lifting the knee, bringing the elbow across the body, so you're still getting that same effect. And you know, if it's more comfortable for you to do it in seated, you could do this in seated, you just be lifting the knee slightly. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful. Okay, if you want to lie back down for a bit. So someone's asking about exercises to help the lower back pain. So definitely what we've done so far will help lower back pain, because it will help to release a lot of the muscles. So literally that sequence that we've just done is really excellent for lower back pain. So again, you'd lie and you'd notice. So anything you want to share, Andrea?
So my head and my shoulders again, but I feel as though my hips have opened up. They feel flatter now, and my feet feel like they're in a different position.
Yeah, so Andrea's just saying that she feels like the hips have opened out, so that the pelvis is actually looks a bit more neutral now, you can see from this angle. And also looks like the legs are relaxed, so that the feet have opened out as well. So what we're trying to do is just really soften the body, release any tension. We tend to hold a lot more tension in our body than we realise we are doing. So it's great to see and to feel. So we've just got 2 more movements to do. So if you'd like to come up onto your side facing the camera, and you might want a head lock under your head, or you can just lie your head on your arm, whichever works best for you. And you're going to bring the knees up in front of you, so they're right up in front of you, 90 degrees. It's as though you're sitting on a straight back chair with your feet flat on the floor. And your back should be fairly straight. And if you're using a mat, you can sort of line yourself up against the mat, or you can even do this one against the wall if you're on at home and there's nobody like me watching to check it's going right. And then you just lightly pinch the top waist muscles with your fingers. And then what you do is you just keep the knees together and just lift the foot just as high as you can. And if it's not very high, that's fine. Just checking that there's some engagement of those side muscles. So can you feel how those side muscles have got engaged? Yeah?
Yeah.
So they get a bit tighter as you lift that foot, and then slowly lower down. So you're just wanting to check that hip is going right up towards the armpit. And then you can bring that straight arm up by the side of your head, over your head. And then really breathe in and reach that arm over your head. And then as you breathe out, you're going to reach the arm to the bottom of the mat, lift the foot, and lift the head up to the side. So keep looking forward, just to the side. It's tempting to look down towards your foot, and then slowly lowering everything down. And Andrea's wearing this wonderful top today. I noticed this one day in class, and I love it when people wear these stripy tops, because you'll notice as she does it again, so do it again, notice how you can really see how those side muscles are contracting, and then as you let go and lengthen, they're really separating. And you have muscles all down the side of your body, some are in between the ribs and some are below the ribs, but all this does is squeeze all of them and then lengthen them all out. So this is a great one for people with rib problems. And then I'm aware of time, so we're gonna leave you with one side done, because it's really interesting. Just have a roll over onto your back. And this is probably the one where people find it easiest to notice the impact of somatic movement, because when you've just done one side like this, you might feel really wonky. Yeah. So what's going on? So you might feel like you're falling away. You might feel like the room's not flat anymore. And what that's all about is basically you've released all the muscles down the side of your body, and so you're getting a lot more connection. You're a lot flatter on that side, and so you probably have actually shifted your weight across a bit more onto that side because you're getting a lot more feedback from the mat. And you're basically lengthened and released all down that side of your body. And then if you feel, oh, what's happening on the side we haven't done, you might feel all bunched and constricted. And yeah, it's interesting just to notice that's how you feel most of the time. That's your normal, your everyday normal. So that's what we're trying to change. So we'll just do one last movement. So just slide your heels towards you again, and this time bring the arms out to 90 degrees. Put that forward a bit. And you're going to basically start by rolling one arm forward and one arm backwards. So one shoulder will lift and one shoulder will press back. And Andrea can't help but do it, she's done it so many times. Her head is going to move towards the open palm. And then the final piece of this jigsaw is your knees move the opposite way to your head. So your head is looking at the open palm and integrates all the different bits of movement that you've been doing today. Turning, twisting, all working in spirals and integrating all the different bits of movement into your body. And this is often everyone's favourite somatic movement. It feels quite pleasurable, you know, it's an amazing thing for people with AS to actually feel pleasure in their body, but this can be a really enjoyable movement. You can just luxuriate in it and softly enjoy it. And then we're going to let that one go, let the arms and legs come down by the side of the body. So we've done a little selection of movements today. We have actually pretty much moved the spine in all the 6 directions. So it's like a mini class. A normal class would be more like an hour and a quarter because you need a little bit more time to really go into the things and really feel it. So I just was aware of time today, keeping it not too long for everyone. And there's a whole host of other things we do. Yeah, as I say, Andrea's been coming to my classes for 3 years, and hopefully there's still enough variety and difference for her to want to carry on coming for many more years. So at this stage you would then think back to how did I feel when I first landed on the mat and what's different now, and again you'd scan down the whole of your body, maybe noticing where your eyes were looking. Is the chin in a different relationship to your body? Maybe there feels like more length in the back of the neck. Maybe the shoulders feel like they're lying flat and relaxed on the mat a little bit more. You can notice whether you've got more contact with the ribs down the back of the body onto the mat. And then you might want to pop the hands under the lower back and just see what's changed there. And notice the weight down the 2 sides of the body, so the 2 sides of the pelvis, the calves and the heels. And as I say, it's one of the wonderful things about somatics is that you can actually feel what you're trying to do as you do the movements. So it's its own reward in a way. It's something that makes you really want to do it more. And I had the same experience as Andrea, where when I started to do somatics, I immediately wanted to do it every morning just because I didn't feel like my body was ready to move before I'd done my somatic practice each morning on the mat. Okay, so let's just come up gently into standing. And then we're just going to stand and notice again. So notice where the weight is in the feet. Does it feel more balanced side to side now? Does it feel more balanced front to back? Maybe it feels like the shoulders have dropped away from the ears. Just noticing whether there's a little bit less sense that of holding down the back of the body between the shoulder blades, the lower back, the glutes. And then it can be quite nice once you're standing just to bring the arms up towards the ceiling and then reach up one side and then reach up the other side and then reach them both up, float them down, roll the shoulders out, and just feel like the head is right on top of the spine, head on top of the ribs, ribs on top of the pelvis, pelvis on top of the ankles. Like a really nice alignment where the skeleton is doing more of the work, and therefore the muscles are not having to work so hard. And one of the other amazing things about somatics is that a lot of people report that they feel like they have a lot more energy. I'm certainly told that all the time, that people are amazed at my energy, because you're not using all that energy to hold the tension in the muscles that you don't need to. So thank you very much, Andrea, for helping today, and I hope you've all found that really useful. If there's any last questions, happy to answer any further questions. I teach classes every week for people with AS live on Zoom, so do get in touch if you're interested. Otherwise, you can also watch this video again, and there's also other videos available on YouTube. So it's actually HANA Somatics is the type of somatics that I practice. It's Thomas Hanna who invented it, Hanna. And yeah, hope you've really enjoyed that, and no further questions, I'll call it a day there. Thank you very much.